Welcome, Pewter Report readers, viewers, and listeners to a brand new edition of the Pewter Report podcast, energized by Celsius, the official energy drink of PewterReport.com. It is a Tuesday edition of the show and our first recap of the 2025 Senior Bowl. Obviously, the Bucs have an eye on edge rushers this year. We took a good look at a lot of them, plus plenty of the other prospects that were participating in these practices today. And of course, we have a lot of other Bucs news to get into. So maybe if you don't love the draft like some others do, or the Senior Bowl, we have Bucs coaches to talk about, we have Bucs players to talk about, and everything else in between. I'm your host, Matt Matera, joined with me, co-hosting today. We're going to have a carousel of Pewter reporters, but leading off, kind of like Junior Caminero does for the Rays, is Bailey Adams. Bailey, how has this experience been taking place in Mobile, Alabama this week?
Really good. Really good. Was on a vacation last week. Had one day in between. Hit the road on Monday and feeling good. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, it's been a great trip so far. A lot of good banter between the whole group for sure, and that'll only continue during the rest of the week. Shout out to everybody that is joining us in the comments right now. Kathy Gillespie started off with, "I wish I don't have to work at 5 a.m. I'm going to try to make it." Well, we appreciate your support, Kathy. And of course, we'll get to other questions and comments and of course, super chats today as well. But let's get right to it, Bailey. There has been a number of news with the Bucs coaching search for offensive coordinator. They have to find a defensive line coach as well. But this really started yesterday, right in the middle of the Pewter Report podcast when you were on, and obviously Scott was on, and Sly as well. The news broke that Nick Caley, the Rams passing game coordinator and their tight ends coach, completed a virtual interview with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. As we learned, and we'll talk about another guy in a little bit, as we learned, the Bucs are kind of obsessed with the Rams, the same way that Mariah Carey once said, "Why are you so obsessed with me?" Talking about her situation with Eminem. But Nick Caley has been the Rams passing game coordinator and tight ends coach. Only had been there for 2 years in 2013 and 2014. Actually comes from the Bill Belichick coaching tree first. Was with the Patriots for several years. Started as just like an assistant, then worked his way up to a tight ends coach where he won 2 Super Bowls and coached Rob Gronkowski. So was familiar with Gronk, familiar with Tom Brady. Now they all have something in common with, at least a little bit, with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But I think it's important to point out when he became the passing game coordinator with the LA Rams this year specifically, the Rams were 10th in the league in passing in the regular season, which I think is pretty impressive considering Puka Nacua was injured for a number of games, even though he's a stud when he's available. Cooper Kupp has taken a little bit of a step back. But yeah, that was the big news with Nick Caley, and then also Drew Ragone, the other big news for the Rams coaching tree.
Yeah, so we got to practice, and I think, what was it, maybe 20 minutes into practice, we got another coaching candidate that surfaced on Twitter X. The Bucs announced that they completed a virtual interview with Rams quarterbacks coach Dave Ragone for the offensive coordinator position. He coached quarterbacks with the Rams just in 2024. Before that, he was with the Falcons for 3 seasons as their offensive coordinator. Didn't call plays. That was Arthur Smith calling plays. And then when Arthur Smith was fired, Raheem Morris brought in. He didn't retain him. He ended up in LA. So another Rams coach. And it's not hard to see why they like the Nick Bay coaching tree. It's worked for them in the past. It works for a lot of other teams around the league. So that was not the biggest surprise to see another one. That made it 3 out of 5 external candidates coming from the current Rams coaching staff. He's kind of been all around. He was in Chicago for 4 years before Atlanta. Spent a year in Washington and spent 3 years in Tennessee. He's coached both quarterbacks and receivers, something we've kind of seen with a few of these other candidates. And that includes another candidate we saw. This is an in-house one. We broke the news on PewterReport.com. We learned that the Bucs will be interviewing an in-house candidate, Josh Brizard, somebody we pointed out and mentioned beforehand, the pass game coordinator this past year under Liam Cohen, also was in charge of third down defense. He is somebody that is very highly regarded inside One Buc Place, very bright guy. Has been He's kind of bounced around too. He's been around. He's a young coach, but he's
Yes.
got a lot of experience already. And the Bucs had the number one third down offense in the league this year, and he ran that part of the show. And again, a guy who is really, really highly thought of and well-rounded candidate for the Bucs. So he will be getting an interview as an in-house candidate, the first one that we know of, and the 6th overall candidate for this open position.
I like that the Bucs are bridging the gap with all these different coaching trees. Like when I mentioned with Kaylee, coming from Belichick and then working with Sean McVay. Ragone, obviously, with McVay. Liam Cohen with McVay. And then Broussard, you mentioned, been to a couple of places, but has learned from a lot of great people. Obviously, comes from Yale. And I say obviously because we have spoken about him on a previous Pewter Report podcast and live podcasts. And really just anytime there's breaking news and we're on our YouTube channel, because that's what we do for you, the Pewter people. But come from Yale, so he can retain information. He's a smart dude who can figure out some good stuff. And I don't think it's a coincidence that the Bucs got so much better on third down when he was handling a lot of that responsibility. And Liam Cohen made sure to give him a shout out several times during the season for what Broussard had done. But also going to Miami and working under Mike McDaniel. You can say about whatever you want about Brian Flores. You could say, okay, Miami, they're soft. They can't win in the cold. They would struggle if they ever came to Mobile, Alabama when it gets pretty cold. But there's no denying when Tua's healthy, Mike McDaniel has a juggernaut of an offense that can really do a lot of great things. So he obviously learned from McDaniel, comes over to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, learns from Liam Cohen, knows how to go up against a defense like Todd Bowles, albeit the struggles this type of season. I think for Baker, it's so important to have that continuity because he just hasn't had it in his career. It's a bit unfair. He's getting handsomely paid for it, 3 years, $100 million, so nobody's really going to be crying for Baker Mayfield. But let me ask you this, Bailey. With some of the guys that we just mentioned, you have one that's kind of bounced all over the place that you mentioned, one that's been to a place or two and then has been stable, and then Broussard, who is in-house. If you're looking from the outside in, do you like that person that's kind of seen so many different places, or does it scare you off a little bit the same way that Liam Cohen bounced around? Or do you like a candidate that's had a little bit of stability and then is looking to spread their wings and fly?
Yeah, I kind of like the guys that have been around a couple of different offenses, and I know a lot of them are sharing similar principles and similar concepts, but guys who can, take these concepts they're learning at different stops, retain them, and build on them, build their offense out. I don't think you can go wrong either way. I know that there might be a little bit of trepidation as far as, a guy like Liam Cohen who was one place 1 year, then the next place another year, and kind of just has done that for the last 5 years. Everybody's different. All people are different people. So I'm not really leaning one way or the other, but I do like the idea of a coach who has these different principles from all these previous stops and then kind of marry them all together.
Yeah, I agree. I think it'd be a cool thing to have. And then while the Bucs are ushering in all of these coaches, another one might be on the move. We just learned a little bit ago that Thad Lewis, the Bucs quarterbacks coach, is interviewing with the Houston Texans for their offensive coordinator position. Bailey, you have a little more info and insight on that one?
Yeah, so it was Ian Rappaport that broke this news, and it said that Thad Lewis has received several requests for offensive coordinator interviews and has turned all of them down. This is the first one he's taken. Obviously, the idea of working with a young quarterback, C.J. Stroud, has to be appealing. Some really good weapons at wide receiver there. And, a team that's had some success, even though, the offense kind of took a step back this year. Stroud's numbers weren't as good as they were the year before this rookie season, but they still made the playoffs. They made some noise in the playoffs, and probably an appealing spot for him. He spent some of his playing career, I know part of one season of his playing career with the Texans. So one that, he's got to take the opportunity. My goodness, the opportunity. I was going to say offer. He hasn't offered yet. Has to take the opportunity to do this interview, especially with the uncertainty of, the offensive staff's future in Tampa. I mean, with a new coordinator coming in, he doesn't know that he's, absolutely safe. And not to mention, it would be a promotion if you were to get the Texans route. So yeah, Thad Lewis, getting a shot to get that interview. Not really surprising. I know he's been highly thought of, and Todd Bowles has spoken very highly of him. So has Bruce Arians in the past. Obviously, it was Arians who brought him on as an intern back in 2020, and he quickly went from intern, assistant wide receivers coach, to quarterbacks coach. So he's kind of done it all in the last few years.
Yeah, I find his career path, whether it's college, the NFL, or now coaching, I find it quite fascinating because, as you just mentioned, Bruce Arians brought him in, but he was only one of the few coaches to survive the, firing of offensive coordinator Byron Leftwich back in the day, which typically you clean the entire house. But apparently they missed a room or two when it came to Thad Lewis. So he was able to survive through that, and that's because of Todd Bowles' belief in Thad Lewis and what he can do. And he's dealt with a couple of different quarterbacks. I shouldn't say dealt like that's a negative, but he's experienced a number of different talent levels and superstar status, if you will. With Tom Brady and everything that he's done in his career, to Baker Mayfield and the polarizing figure that he can be. It's been quite the fascinating journey, really, for Thad Lewis.
Yeah, and another coach like the ones we just mentioned that the Bucs are interviewing, who has experience at different parts of the offense. Obviously, quarterbacks coach, but before that, as I mentioned, was assistant wide receivers coach. So has worked in different aspects of the passing game, and it would be very interesting to see if this is some of the way that Houston wants to go. I think it might be maybe a little bit of a gamble on their part after taking away and getting rid of Bobby Slowick after just a year after he was a hot head coaching candidate. But we'll be very, very curious to see if this works out with Thad Lewis.
That's why it's always a dicey fine line, right? Like when your name's in the news, when your name is circulating around, yes, you want to make the right choice when it comes to becoming a head coach, but at the same time, you're hot for 1 second, then you're cold the next second. You're yes and you're no. You're in and you're out. As Katy Perry once said, you're up and you're down. So, like with Thad Lewis, I think you kind of have to jump on the opportunity if it's there. Now, it's a little bit different with offensive coordinator and head coach, which kind of leads us to this comment from K.E. Hall, who says, Liam is waiting to see who we hire so he can try to coach one of our coaches to make them offensive coordinator. Talking about how he's focused on the defensive coordinator right now. Well, from our understanding, Liam Cohen can really only bring over one other coach from the current Bucs coaching staff because they're all on a contract. So he can only bring in one other person because it would be an elevation of status and position going from an assistant coach to an offensive coordinator. So that's important to factor in because you're not just going to a new team and becoming their offensive coordinator and being the main play caller and all that stuff. No, you're just running the system that Liam Cohen has in place. I know people are tired of us talking about Liam Cohen, but it goes hand in hand with the current Bucs coaching staff and what's going on over in Jacksonville as well. So we'll continue to monitor the situation. Just an update for everybody. There's been a number of candidates that the Bucs have interviewed already, and probably more to come. One of them being Nate Shieldhouse. Grant Udinsky. And Shieldhouse is another one that comes from the Rams organization. Grant Udinsky, who comes over from the Vikings. Marcus Brady, who's the Chargers passing game coordinator. So those are just a number of people that have been interviewing with the Buccaneers for, again, this very lucrative position, because it's way different than it was with Dave Canales, who we saw today at the Senior Bowl, way different than when he came into town. So, again, don't worry too much, Bucs fans. The offense is still going to be in a pretty good spot, regardless of who is calling the plays. And speaking of offense, we had a little bit of offensive news when it came to the Pro Bowl.
Yes. So whoever is going to be this next offensive coordinator, the fourth in 4 years for the Bucs, will get to work with a back-to-back Pro Bowler in Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield making the Pro Bowl games again as a replacement for Jaden Daniels. I think there was a very strong case for Mayfield to have made the roster from the jump, but he makes it now. 4,500 yards this year, 41 passing touchdowns, 44 total touchdowns. He was the Pro Bowl games in offensive MVP last year. He won the precision passing contest. So he will be joining Tristan Wirfs, Vita Vea, and Mike Evans. Mike Evans was added as a replacement on Monday. And just a day later, his quarterback, Baker Mayfield, joining him in Orlando.
I'm happy to see this. I know the Pro Bowl isn't what it once was, but I think it's it's a little more entertaining when your own people are in it, especially, like Tristan Wirfs isn't playing in the game. He's not running around. And even though it's flag football, sometimes you get tripped up on someone. There's an accidental hit. You don't have to worry about that with Tristan Wirfs or Vita Vea either. They're just going to be doing the obstacle course. I remember I was sick to my stomach last year watching it because Tristan Wirfs was working with Cameron Jordan, and it disgusted me. I almost wanted to vomit. So maybe this year, because they were like pushing a little like tractor thing. I don't even really know what it was. Maybe this year Vita and Tristan Wirfs can be pushing it together, and that's a scary sight to behold. I mean, occasionally we'll get Vita Vea on offense with the Bucs when they're at the goal line situation. But regardless, very happy for Baker and Mike. We'll see if Baker can get another Pro Bowl MVP. Are you surprised that Mike's playing in this game, just given his age? And I'm not saying he's going to pull a lethal weapon and say I'm too old for this, but
I don't know, because last year he decided not to go. He opted not to, and there was a replacement for him. Now he makes it as a replacement this year. Partly surprised, partly maybe just tough year for him as far as the midseason injury. He fought back to get that 1,000 yards again, and then the bitter end of the season maybe makes me feel like he wants to just kind of go with his teammates and do this. He never knows, I guess, when this could be the last time. He's a 6-time Pro Bowler now, and maybe he just wants to kind of go experience it and knows he's getting up there in age. Not really showing any signs of slowing down, but he's not going to be doing this forever. So maybe an opportunity for him to go and do this.
That's a good point, and maybe he'll end up playing defensive back like he did a couple of years ago. Pewter Report will have a couple people at the Pro Bowl, so stay tuned for all of that. It also makes sense why Mike didn't play in it last year because he was dealing with that contract situation, which now he is not, which is good to see. We have a $4.99 super chat from Josh Weiss. Thank you very, very much, Josh. We appreciate it. Who says, Baker is the QB, no doubt, but any mid-round QBs to keep an eye on in the draft. Any chance Trask returns, what APY salary and annual per year salary would be reasonable?
So I think this is only day one in Mobile, and there's obviously some quarterbacks who aren't in Mobile. It's weird. About 3 years, my third year been here, I don't think there's been, really a day where the quarterbacks have looked great. Like I don't know if it's hard for them to showcase, what they can do at this opportunity, but I haven't been super impressed. Wasn't very impressed today. Maybe we'll dive a little bit more into later round quarterbacks, but I do think it's probably, I don't say it's a safe bet, but I think there's a good chance that Kyle Trask does return. And our cap guy, Josh Capo, says $4 million a year probably be around what would be reasonable for Kyle Trask to return at the back.
Well, someone's a huge fan of Kyle Trask because when we were waiting online for our credentials, we saw someone wearing a Kyle Trask Gators jersey today. Yeah, when it comes to Kyle Trask, I'm kind of good either way. Like, if the Bucs want to bring Kyle Trask back, fine. I mean, he couldn't. I get why he started as a third-string quarterback with Tom Brady and, of course, local hero Blaine Gabbert as the second-string quarterback. But he didn't beat out Baker Mayfield. Let's remember, the Bucs spent a second-round pick on Kyle Trask. It wasn't like he was he's a sixth rounder, whatever. Maybe he'll be the next Tom Brady. Slaps test. Like, it wasn't that type of situation. It was actually, hey, we are investing legitimate capital in him. And I remember there was a lot of debate at the time, like from the Traskaholics and from just
even still.
Yeah, even still. Just should they have drafted Kyle Trask? Should they have gone with another player since the team is in win now mode and coming off of a Super Bowl? I get that, hey, he's still a young guy. We haven't really seen him operate in an offense in a regular season game. He briefly appears here and there. But the question really becomes is, how do you feel if Baker Mayfield gets injured? Like, do you think Kyle Trask can win you a game? Do you think he can win you the division? What about a playoff game? If you don't fully believe in that, and you have Michael Pratt, who's kind of this developmental project, you could have two developmental projects by drafting another quarterback this year. And again, like, it wouldn't be in the early rounds.
And they do only have 6 picks this year.
That too. So it would be a day 3 type of situation. Or do you go out and get a veteran backup quarterback, someone that you maybe rely on a little bit more? just in case something happens to Baker. And let's be honest, with the style of play that Baker Mayfield has, Bailey, you hope it never happens, but it wouldn't shock anyone, I don't think, if Baker got hurt.
What's remarkable is the fact that he's gotten through the last 2 years without missing a game, and then before that, Tom Brady, even at the age he was, not missing a game. So the Bucs haven't really run into a situation where they've needed their backup quarterback to step in and do anything. And you hope you're never in that situation, but you never know. Like you were smacking the desk in laughter a second ago. Yeah, knock on the wood here to make sure that doesn't happen. But it's hard with Trask because we haven't seen a ton of him. Obviously, he knows the offense, maybe offensive coordinator, but he is familiar, obviously, with the guys in the room. He's been here for 4 years now. I wouldn't mind seeing him come back, but at the same time, I don't know if I'm, pounding the table for him to come back. Like, it's just one way or the other.
Right.
Like you said, it's like, yeah, sure. Or if he doesn't, okay, we'll have to move on and find somebody else.
No, it's true, because on the one hand, this was the front office that brought in Kyle Trask, but it's certainly not going to be the same offensive coordinator. It's certainly not going to be even the previous coach that wanted Kyle Trask. So if they've seen enough where they say, hey, we'll sign him to an inexpensive 1 or 2 year deal, or whatever the case may be, then absolutely. But if they want to upgrade a backup quarterback and they're going to be a team that's competing for their division title once again, then I think, hey, go for it. Go with a veteran quarterback that can probably win you a couple more games maybe than Kyle Trask can. But we'll have plenty of the offseason to talk about this. We are here live in Mobile, Alabama. We're going to have Adam Slabon on in a little bit to talk about what we saw. Bailey, you're a little bit busy today with all the breaking news with what went on, but especially in the afternoon practice, before you hop off, was there anything that really caught your eye, anything that really stood out to you?
Unfortunately, I felt like the first practice was the one that was more entertaining.
It was.
There wasn't a ton of standouts in the second one, the one that I was actually available for. But I think there were, and I'm looking forward, I talked about it yesterday in the after episode, some of the wide receivers, Iowa State guys I'm interested in. I mentioned Xavier Restrepo from Miami.
Yes.
I think he had a pretty good day today, and from what I saw. I'm looking forward to looking more at the edge guys tomorrow and seeing kind of the guys that the Bucs might be targeting earlier on and trying to really fix up that pass rush because they do need that guy.
Yes.
Maybe he can become that guy still, but they still need to keep going out and swinging for the fences and trying to get that guy. And if you got 2 of them, cool. Makes it even better.
Right. There's the old adage of like you have 2 quarterbacks, you don't have one.
Yeah.
That is not the case when it comes to outside linebacker and edge rusher. And another thing I can never have enough of, and it fueled us going to Mobile, Alabama, was Celsius energy drinks, the official energy drink of PewterReport.com. We love Celsius and all the fantastic flavors that they have. My personal favorite is the Arctic Vibe. You can check out their new flavor, the Playa Vibe or the Playa Vibe. And we're trying to find a lot of players during the Senior Bowl this week who will be drafted by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It's like a pina colada flavor. But we love Celsius. You need to know where to find a Celsius energy drink, especially if you're out of town like we are right now in Mobile, Alabama. Go to the Celsius store locator on their website, punch in your address, and it'll tell you the closest location where you could pick one up. Could be a Walmart, a Target, a Piggly Wiggly, a Publix, Stop and Shop, or your bodega.
Bodega.
That's the voice of Adam Slabon and company. And once you keep going to your bodega and you know you love Celsius and you want more, you want to get it in bulk, you can buy it in bulk over on Amazon with the subscribe and save. Just have it sent to your place of residence whenever you want. You set it up. It's completely at your leisure. Just make sure you drink the Celsius energy drinks, the official energy drink of PewterReport.com. Get that variety pack. There's so many fantastic flavors. Adam, hello. Welcome.
Hello,
what's going on?
What's up? Great to be on with you and recapping the first day of the Senior Bowl practices. We got to see the National and American team out there, some standouts on both sides of the ball. So let's get right into it, shall we? With the national team, when you look at it, who do you think was a couple of players that came to mind as some standouts?
Yeah, and just for clarification for everybody, we travel in packs. We got a big group of people, so some of us paid a little bit more attention to the edge rushers and some offensive linemen today.
Yeah.
Ourselves, we kind of looked a little bit more at the corners and the receivers and things of that nature. So we kind of bounce all over the place, and that's what we're doing. this rotating cast. But early on, I mean, cornerback clearly is a position that the Buccaneers are going to be interested this season, regardless of if Jamel Dean is back or whatever the case may be, because they certainly need depth at that position. But someone that was making plays right off the bat was Bilal Cohn from Western Michigan. Immediately, wham, defending the slant pass, Dylan Gabriel, the Oregon quarterback, who was really
probably the best quarterback.
Yeah, and wasn't even that good. I think it speaks more to the quarterback play from today. But he's someone that really stood out right away. And then I got to give a shout out to Florida State. And it's not biased. I mean, Florida State was terrible this season.
Yeah.
But Azarai Thomas made one of the best PBUs of the day, in my opinion. He was defending a deep ball down the field, ended up being a jump ball, went up, swatted it away.
And he was celebrating.
Started yelling, did like a point and everything like that. But those were some of the corners, at least in the morning practice, that really stood out to me. Players that were competitive. We know the specific type that Todd Bowles likes when it comes to corners, but for me, I like an aggressive corner, someone that's not afraid to get up in your face, be physical, go after you over and over and over. And I saw that with those two corners today.
Yeah, you mentioned cornerback, and I want to also get to another position that could be a need defensively, and that's inside linebacker. And I thought of all of them that were out there today, Jeffrey Bassa probably did the best. And
totally agree.
Another Oregon teammate of Dylan Gabriel's, but Bassa converted defensive back, a lot of college experience, starting 55 games. He had 3 interceptions during his time with the Ducks, including a pick 6 back in 2023. But something that was interesting with him is that he was a teammate with none other than Bucky Irving, the Bucs rookie sensation at running back. And when he spoke kind of about the battles that both of them had in practice, they made each other better players. And I think that's something that really speaks volumes to Bassa's skill set as more of a coverage linebacker. Only 226 pounds. He's not going to be that big enforcer, that Mike linebacker. He'd probably be more of a Levante David replacement should David move on and retire in the offseason. But really liked him and thought his skill set could really translate to the NFL.
Yeah, he was all over the place.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned, some of the pass breakups that he had a nice stop in the run game as well. Pewter Report's own Josh Capo has a great video right now. You can see it on Pewter Report's Twitter, but he's the one that drew it up and actually spoke to him after about that specific play where he had a really nice pass breakup down the field. Looked like the play was kind of done, but he stuck with it for sure. And then obviously you had your conversation with him about Bucky Irving as well. There is that Oregon connection.
Definitely. And there was even another play. So Josh pointed out one, and then there was another one at the end of practice where he was going up against Michigan running back Donovan Edwards. Looks like Edwards, he kind of put a move on him. But Bassa showed the ability to recover and really put his hand in there, break up the pass. So overall, thought he had a really nice day. Yet again, there's another Oregon Duck at the wide receiver position. We both saw, we made the same observation, Tej Johnson. He's only 5'9", 156, so he's a little stick of dynamite, but he was explosive out there, creating separation. It's just that the quarterbacks couldn't really get the ball to him.
Right, yeah, he was getting open. He was showing some good footwork, the ability to maneuver and get open and all these different things. But the pass is too high or too low, even for a shorter caliber player. You're not able to be that playmaker that you want to be. Now, there were times he got the ball in his hands and he was able to head upfield. And sure, we don't know how many tackles he would have broken because there's not that much tackling going on in these practices. Really, the most physical things that go on are in the trenches with the offensive and defensive line. But I thought he really did some good things today. Absolutely. Jalen Noel also had a big time catch early on in one-on-ones. I still don't know how he really held on to this football.
That was the best catch of the day.
Yeah, it was a throw from Dylan Gabriel. You can see it on our social media as well, on X and Instagram and everything, on Facebook as well. He was on the sideline. He had to adjust, and I don't know how he kept both of his feet in bounds. It looked like he kept both feet in. But man, oh man, like just that display of athleticism to stay in bounds, beat the defender who, was on him for a little bit, but to create enough separation as well. It didn't take long, but it was one of the highlight plays of the day.
Yeah, for sure. And you mentioned the wide receiver position. I know Bailey discussed him briefly, but Xavier Restrepo, I thought, did really nice things today. Again, 5'9", but a lot more stockier than Tej Johnson at 200 pounds. Thought he displayed a really good route tree and skill set and the ability to separate. So you look at Noel, Restrepo, Tej Johnson, some smaller receivers, but the Bucs, they could always use another playmaker and kind of prepare for the future at the same time with Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. One of them's over 30, one of them's about to be pretty soon. So you never know. Day 3, they could be options.
No doubt about it. Everything is on the table, especially with not knowing who this offensive coordinator is going to be. Like if Liam Cohen's calling the plays, maybe we're not looking at a certain number of guys, but depending on who's going to come in and say, this is who I want Baker Mayfield throwing the football to, definitely will be important. I think it's also important to point out, and this hinges on Chris Godwin coming back, and as Scott Reynolds has put with the stamp of approval, Chris Godwin will be coming back. But right now, the Bucs are looking to find a 4th-string wide receiver that they can eventually bump up to be their, first or second in a world I don't want to be a part of, where Mike Evans and Chris Godwin are not playing on this Buccaneers team anymore. But you got Jalen McMillan in a pretty good spot. Now, how do you add on top of that? Because I don't think Rakim Jarrett's the answer. Obviously, Sterling Shepard.
Not Trey Palmer.
Probably, it's not Trey Palmer either. So they're not going to go big free agency with receiver outside of re-signing Chris Godwin. That wouldn't really make much sense to put all this money towards a receiver when you already have a top 1, 2, and really even 3. So the best way to do that, as we see with the Bucs at other positions over and over and over, is replenish a certain position group through the draft, and that's going to be the case with wide receiver. Were there any receivers in the afternoon practices that really stood out to you? Because I had a couple.
Not really. I had my eye more on the defensive side in the second practice, and you kind of mentioned cornerback early. There's another cornerback in the American team that stood out to me. That was Ole Miss's Trey Amos, kind of a smooth guy, 6 foot tall, checks all the boxes at the cornerback position. And with like a late first-round grade, it'd be interesting to see if his stock maybe increases a little bit to where the Bucs, they might pick him at 19. They might trade down a few spots, try to nab him at the end of the first round. But overall, I thought he was probably the best Ole Miss defender today. And that's saying a lot because they had Walter Nolan, Princely Montemalian, but Amos stuck out in the secondary.
That's good to see, for sure. I got 2 more people in the secondary. They came in the afternoon practices that I got to talk about. One of them, got to give a shout out to Isaiah and Bailey from UCF, Brandon Adams. He had one of the funnest, most exciting interceptions on the day. Deep ball down the field in the end zone, one-on-one coverage, down all the way, makes the catch, immediately gets up, starts screaming, couple of profanities, so some people were covering their ears, being like, oh my God. But then he kept saying, I told y'all. And he said something like, give me my money, or I get money. It was like the intro to the 50 Cent song, I Run New York. He's like, I get money. So I thought that was big time. And then, of course, Oklahoma, Boomer Sooner. We know Baker Mayfield's happy about this one. Billy Bowman Jr., there was talks that he had an interception, but then after replay, he only had 1 foot in bounds, which, listen, if you're playing to get into the NFL, you got to go by NFL rules. Also had a nice pass breakup covering the tight ends as well. So a couple of other guys in the secondary that I thought had a pretty good day. Now, let's keep in mind, it's only one day. There's still 2 more practices. Some guys are going to rise up their game. Other guys have balled out today. Maybe that's the best that they do all week. So keep that in mind with a grain of salt that, there's still a long way to go in this whole process.
Yeah, for sure. And you talked about Billy Bowman. Doing some more research on him. Wasn't a guy that we really were looking at coming into Mobile, but he had 6 interceptions in 2023. 3 of them were pick sixes, so a lot of playmaking ability there, and the ability to really make plays on the ball is something that Tampa Bay's secondary desperately needs, because only 7 interceptions all season isn't going to cut it. A couple of these guys could definitely be options. Matt, was there anyone that you saw out there today that you kind of want to see some more of, that maybe they were a highly touted prospect, and they just didn't perform today?
There wasn't the quarterbacks I wasn't in love with today. I mean, we talked about Dylan Gabriel having a pretty good day, but outside of that, I just didn't love what I saw from the quarterbacks, whether it was Milroe for sure. It's like
He was bad.
You know the meme where it's like someone with a stick and they're like, "Come on, just do something."
Yeah,
like when they're pushing the person. That's what I wanted from Jalen Milroe. I thought Jackson Dart was like okay.
Yeah.
You know, made some throws, didn't make all the great throws. Riley Leonard just now in my cousin Vinny moment, train coming through. Yeah. Riley Leonard, weirdly enough, was like better when it was 11-on-11s than it was in the 1-on-1s when guys are like able to create a little more separation. So I'd like to see a little bit more from the quarterbacks. Running backs, it's always tough to decipher and determine in these settings where there's not too much running going on. Yeah. Donovan Edwards, I thought, left a little more meat on the bone. Like he ran some good routes, but then wasn't able to hold on to the ball. Now, some of it was the throw wasn't great; it was toward the sideline. But I'm excited to watch him once again. I want to give 2 more shout outs as well. 2 other wide receivers that I saw in the afternoon practice. Ty Belton from Maryland, former teammates of Rakim Jarrett, but hopefully he'll have a better career. Made a great catch down the field. Again, another kind of jump ball type of situation. This one came from Jackson Dart.
Yeah.
Little bit of hand fighting on both sides if you want to argue which way it went. But he was able to kind of bounce off the defender, jump back, leap back, make the catch, and stay in bounds. I thought he made a really good play there. And Arian Smith out of Georgia, I mean, he's no Lad McConkey or anything like that, but he had some nice route running today where he wasn't just getting open. He was getting like 5 to 10 yards open. Yeah. Like it was super impressive to see the ability that he had, making guys miss, doing all of these different things. So it was one of those, had some nice moments. Wouldn't say he absolutely dominated and balled out, but he's someone that I have my eye on for tomorrow. But you asked me, so what about you?
Yeah, looking at it, 2 Iowa State guys I want to really see some more out of. So we mentioned Jalen Knoll, who made that really nice catch, but his teammate, Jaden Higgins, wide receiver, 6'2", 200 pounds. He's well built. He kind of fits that prototype, but kind of want to see some more big plays. And then also on the flip side, cornerback Darian Porter, really athletic guy, but under 200 pounds. So he doesn't really have that physicality. He only had 18 tackles for the Cyclones, but somebody that I think has good ball skills that just really hasn't translated yet. But there is one player that I want to mention here that really balled out. We saw a little bit of him, but just the clips on social media. North Dakota State offensive lineman Gray Zabel did phenomenal today. And really everyone was talking about him. And I know Jason Light, he's kind of looking at him. He's saying, do I need another offensive lineman in the second round? But he can play center, guard, tackle. Bucs really have a need at left guard. So could he dip back into that North Dakota State well? That remains to be seen. But Zabel, he did really well.
Yeah, we'll have Scott and Josh on in momentarily to talk about some of the edge rushers and maybe some more offensive line talk and things of that nature. But that's one thing I like about Jason Light. I mean, I still remember him saying it at the combine. I can't recall if it was last year or 2 years ago, but he's like, I wish the NFL draft was like 10 rounds so I could just draft more offensive linemen. Even when this is a group that needs a lot of defensive players, outside linebacker, inside linebacker, corner, maybe even safety, you can never rule out Jason Light drafting an offensive lineman. And even could be a tackle that he kicks inside, could be a guard that he kicks outside. There's Jason Light, formerly John Spytek, now with the Raiders. But Jason Light always looking to build in the trenches, and who knows who could be the next one. He does love going with that smaller school route. So, you never know what's going to go on when it comes to the Bucs drafting. What we can tell you is going on is we have a lot of other shows still coming up this week. We have another show coming up tomorrow, same time at 7 p.m. Eastern time. It'll be Bucs Defensive Target Shine. Then, of course, Thursday, we are driving back from the Senior Bowl, so no Pewter Report podcast on Thursday as we have a big travel day ahead. But on Friday, we'll have another Pewter Insider. It'll be the latest on the Bucs offensive coordinator search. And then on Sunday, Adam, you and Josh have a special show coming up.
Yeah, it'll be at 9 a.m. Josh and I will be doing a live Bucs mock draft, and the theme is going to be all Senior Bowl picks. So if you want some more intel on some of the Senior Bowl prospects that we liked by each round, it'll be a fun show that we're going to do on a weekend. So be sure to tune in.
Okay, and with that, we're going to bring on Scott and Adam, Scott and Josh. But first, let's hear a message from our friends over at Walk-Ons.
Yeah, so what happened out there tonight?
We struck out at home with leftovers, then we remembered walk-ons.
What effect did the situation have?
Spirit soared. Nick took on a burger, Jen obliterated her ribeye po' boy, and speaking of spirits, Laura even scored a real tasty cocktail. She needed that.
Any lessons learned today?
Yeah. Head straight to walk-ons.
Scratch-made dishes, wall-to-wall TVs, craft beers, and cocktails. Walk-Ons for the win.
Walk-Ons for the win. That's right, folks. Scott Reynolds here with Josh Capo. Just wanted to let you know that there's a couple of new things at Walk-Ons. Make sure you get the Walk-Ons Rewards app when you go. You're going to earn some free mozzarella logs when you download the app today and sign up. They're not mozzarella sticks, folks. They're mozzarella logs. They're huge. They're delicious. Make sure that you get some free with the Walk-Ons Rewards app. Also, try the wings, which are fantastic, with the new Southern Bourbon sauce and earn 100 bonus points on your Walk-Ons Rewards app. Walk-Ons, 3 locations in the Tampa Bay area. Wesley Chapel, my neck of the woods. Tara loves to go to that Midtown Tampa location by the stadium. And then also in Lakeland. So make sure you're downloading Walk-Ons Rewards and trying those wings with the Southern Bourbon sauce and earn 100 points with that. So great to be with you. Josh Capo is with me, and we're talking about some defensive linemen and edge rushers today that we were excited to see in practice. And some of these guys were players we've already talked about. We talked about Mike Green yesterday on the program. Also had him as the Bucs mock draft #1 pick. He may not be there at 19, Josh.
No, he really might not be. He came in with a lot of fanfare. I think it really started with about 2 weeks ago, would you say?
Yeah.
And I think former Pewter reporter Trevor Sikkema, who's now the lead draft analyst for Pro Football Focus, sprang him way up his draft board. I think made him like edge #2 overall, like a top 10 guy on his board. And with that, you saw a lot of people start to really come to know Mike Green, ourselves included, right around that time. And I think the best thing to say about Mike Green here today was it was as advertised.
Yeah.
You saw the deep bag of tricks. He was throwing spin moves. He was throwing near chops. He was throwing rips. But then the #1 thing, if you look up Mike Green from today, is everybody was just absolutely enthralled with his bend.
Yeah.
His ability to turn the corner, the fluidity in both his hips and his ankles to win outside against real talent, which is here at the Senior Bowl. And I think that he solidified himself as that first-round pick, maybe even a top half of the first round kind of guy. And he may not be there at 19 for the Bucs. And I think the other thing that impressed both you and me, it was a question mark on our individual or our respective evaluations of him. How could he hold up against the run?
Oh boy!
Could he set the edge? And unequivocally, he checked that box.
Yeah, that was the great thing about this. Seeing these guys go up against offensive tackles, and really not even tight ends, but offensive tackles. We had some question marks, and not that they couldn't do it, but we just wanted to see in person. How are these guys in run support? You look at a guy like Shaq Barrett, very underrated run defender, despite being 6'1", 250 pounds for Todd Bowles, but did a lot of the dirty work, setting the edge, very physical player. And I think that's something that really has been missing with Joe Tryon showing his game. He's just not that physical guy that likes to stick his nose in. Got a little bit better as the years went on. But, man, we saw not only Mike Green, but Donovan Ezeraku just literally throw their bodies into tackles and just demolish running lanes. And I was very impressed by that. It's almost like those two guys are probably the best 2 edge rushers here. And both of them, there was a little bit of competition to kind of outdo each other, which was great to see in practice.
Yeah, and with Green specifically, just playing with, he played bigger than his 251 frame. The 251 in and of itself was a pleasant surprise, I think, for most draft evaluators, seeing him clear that 250 mark. But then just playing with a tenacity and a physicality that goes beyond that weight, that height-weight combination for him. Ezraku, not quite as great in that area, in my opinion. There were some flashes. You and I both really were impressed by a club move that he threw, where he had enough punch in his hand to get the tackles, just move him right off his spot. Didn't even have to finish with a rip move.
That was enough.
Hey, clear path to the quarterback. Here we go. But I think those two, it was kind of they reinforced what people already thought. But there was one edge rusher that you and I both kind of came away with saying, this guy's rising up, at least our boards. I think he was rising up a lot of people's boards. You want to talk a little bit about it?
I do. It's UCLA's Olufemi Elijah, and he was phenomenal today. I mean, you look at this guy was a middle linebacker at UCLA, and guess what? He got replaced by a guy that we both like, who wasn't at the Senior Bowl today.
Which was
Carson.
Yep. Carson Schweschinger. Yeah, absolutely. And with Oladejo, what was really interesting with him is he was very big for a middle linebacker last year. But as you talked to him, he told you it was kind of about how to get the best 11 guys on the field. And UCLA had a bunch of really good edge rushers last year who graduated and cleared a path for him to become an edge rusher this year. But you talk about the size. The size is something that I think Todd Bowles will really like. He's 261, I think 6'2" and 3/4, if I remember, 261 pounds. He was the guy, off the bus, checks the box.
Absolutely.
As soon as we saw him walk onto the field, every one of us was like, whoa, who's this guy? And then his play backed up that frame. A lot of length, a lot of power, speed to power, burst off the line. And he was keeping his eyes on the quarterback and really setting up offensive tackles. He would set up an out, they couldn't think he was running outside. He'd come inside with a spin move. He would set up an inside and then get a pull where he's kind of grabbing the corner. So very impressive. But the thing that I think both of us are a little inquisitive about, he reminds us of a current Bucs pass rusher, and it makes us think, well, if the Bucs want to diversify their pass rush, would he be somebody who's necessarily on their radar? And that's Yaya Diaby. He plays. The size is very similar to Diaby. The way he wins is very similar to Diaby. I would say he probably had, and interestingly enough, better pass rush plan than Diaby.
And I think
he's extra tricks.
More fluid too. He may not be that uber athlete that is going to run a 4.51 like Diaby did at the combine. And we're not knocking Yaya Diaby. I mean, he had a great year outside of the sack column. The pressures were up, the quarterback hits, and he came on at the end of the season. But the thing that I like about Alejo, how do we say it again? Oladejo, thank you. Oladejo was he was so hoarse by the end of practice because he's so energetic. He was showing some really good leadership out there that I had a hard time hearing him a little bit after practice because he was yelling and screaming so much. Now, you're not supposed to be drafted to yell and scream, right? That's coach's job. But the fact that this is an all-star game, and he was one of those guys that really was a leader right off the bat amongst the defensive line was impressive. He was talking about Carson Schweschinger, that those two guys were the last two guys out of the weight room, that they competed. And for someone being so raw to get 4.5 sacks as a senior and lead the Bruins in sacks, it's quite remarkable. But this is a very high football IQ player, very smart, heady guy that will appeal to Todd Bowles. The work ethic is there. The leadership is there. Very mature guy. He said, man, from the neck up, I got it going on. And I agree after interviewing with him and seeing the tools that he has. Gosh, this guy just needs some coaching and look out, because he looked like a natural edge. He even said that he didn't play edge the entire season. The first 3 weeks of the season, he was still at the linebacker level. And so what I like about him is the fluidity, because this is a guy that has dropped in coverage. Not that I want the outside linebackers Tampa to drop in coverage anymore, but he can do it because he played at the linebacker level. He was a middle linebacker at Cal and then transferred to UCLA and played the last couple of seasons. So there's a lot to like about this UCLA kid.
And you mentioned a couple of qualities for him. He was almost hoarse because he was such a vocal, and the leadership. Somebody else who was displaying that from the same group, which I want to say was the national team to start off, was, and now we're going to move to the interior, was Y.A. Black. So when you read it, if you're looking these guys up, it's going to read a lot like Yaya Black, but it's Y.A. Black, spelled Y-A-H-Y-A. Yeah, that's Y.A. Black. And he was out of Iowa. Big dude.
Huge.
Biggest man on the field. I think he cleared 337, if I remember, on the weigh-in yesterday. Great anchor. They could not move him in the run game. And then in the one-on-ones and is from a pass rush, he had a really, really strong push-pull that he used to win. That leadership, he was the one pumping everybody up just in terms of the pace of his play, and then also just vocally. He was the guy pumping up whenever a defensive player got a win. Yeah. And then he finished it off with a little bit of extracurricular activity with Millam, I think Wyatt Millam. And so he was that guy, echo of the whistle, maybe a little bit past the whistle. We know that those are guys that Jason Light tends to really like. But Vita Vea?
He looks a lot like him, man. And he's a powerful, powerful dude.
Yeah.
Vita Vea is 30 years old.
That's what I was thinking. Yep.
And Greg Gaines has been coming back on one-year deals, and he's a good guy if you don't have anybody that's better, right? But he's also a guy on your roster that you're looking to replace, right? At some point in time, you're looking to draft a guy to replace him. And this guy would be. Can you imagine having Vita Vea as your mentor if you're Y.A. Black and you're similar size, and we've seen what Will Golston has done for Logan Hall from a mentorship standpoint. Similar body size and all that. You're talking about a mid-round pick, a defensive tackle. This is a deep defensive tackle draft.
Very deep.
Logan Hall is going to be a free agent next year. So he's going to be in a contract year. If he gets 5 or 6 sacks, he very well could get big money elsewhere. You're not going to necessarily pay to keep him because you have your 2 starters with Vita Vea and Kalijah Kancey. You need another guy on that rookie deal to come in and be that 3rd defensive tackle.
And not only that, but Logan Hall, it's been a slow burn for him to get to probably his best season this past season. Still a lot of meat on the bone there. And I hate to be the chicken little, but I will also bring up, there's a world where Logan Hall gets 1.5 sacks again or no sacks again. And he's gone for a very different reason. So you got to have that depth building. But going from the biggest guy on the field, who could be an easy mentee for Vita Vea, I want to move to somebody else who you've always told me, Warren Sapp told you, who's the fly in the punch bowl, right? Who's the guy who's kind of effing things up?
A different word than fly in the punch bowl, but yeah.
But is somebody who could maybe be a mentee of Kalijah Kancey when you talk about the builds, and that's Tennessee interior defensive lineman Norman Lott, and he was just everywhere. I compare him to a Tasmanian devil.
He
was playing with such a high motor, but he paired that motor with just a great get off. He was the quickest guy off the line, quicker than a lot of the edges. There were numerous plays that he made in the backfield during the 11-on-11s. He was forcing offensive linemen to absolutely continue to block all the way through the rep where they were going to lose it. And he definitely popped for, I think, both of us.
No doubt. And from the bag drills with the technique, he was the most technique sound guy.
And his hits were popping.
Oh, big time. Powerful guy. And sometimes when you don't have the ideal size, like you got to be good in everything else. And he was with the technique, the hands, the power, the tenacity to get off. He checked a lot of boxes. He's not going to wow you off the bus, but Kalijah Kancey's not that guy either, right? So this could be a defensive tackle rotational guy that Tampa Bay takes a look at.
Yeah, and at 6'1", 295, he's not so far outside that median area like Kalijah Kancey that the physical tools have to absolutely go above and beyond. But like you said, just well-rounded. He'd make a great rotational 3 technique. He certainly impressed both of us.
Yeah, for sure.
The other leadership skill, just kind of going back to Oladeo that you mentioned, was just the headiness, smarts. And we saw that in a linebacker, didn't we?
Yeah, we sure did. Jeffrey Bassa was a player that we really liked, and I know we've talked a little bit about him. Matter of fact, he's kind of the feature guy on the program for tomorrow. But he was a player that really has a firm grasp of what's going on and really picked things up quickly today. Was making the right calls. Was getting praise from the linebackers coaches today, and just kind of looked like the alpha out there, right? And the coverage ability by far, he was the best coverage linebacker for sure. There was another guy we'll talk about in a second, but what are your thoughts on Bassa?
Yeah, when I think of Bassa and you think about the Buccaneers' needs, they lacked athleticism and the ability to move in space at the linebacker position in 2024. And if I were to ask you what are the two qualities that he has in spades, what would they be?
Yeah, athleticism and coverage ability.
Exactly. And so he's a former defensive back. And we saw one specific rep in 11-on-11s that impressed the heck out of me to the point where I wanted to ask him specifically about it.
And you did?
I did. Yeah, that's right. So he was obviously playing the Mike linebacker. There was a play action pass where he has a crossing route developing not in front of it, but behind it.
Yeah.
And he had the foresight and the understanding of what was going on in the play to pick up the crosser, follow it across the field, and then up the far sideline.
Yeah.
And he ended up making a pass breakup, mostly because the ball hit him in the helmet. He didn't get his head around.
He was right there in coverage, though.
But there was no window to throw into
right.
because he was right there. So asked him about it in the interview period after practices, and his answer impressed me because he was able to detail. He knew the exact rep I was talking about.
Yeah.
He remembered exactly what the splits were for the offense. He remembered exactly what the coverage call. He detailed everything that he was looking for from snap to when that crosser hit him and how he was able to follow it out.
Almost like Tyke Smith. If you remember some of those pre-draft interview footage clips that Buccaneers.com put out, right, where John Spytek and Larry Footer asking him these questions, Tyke Smith, and he just has these rapid-fire answers like he could do this in his sleep. That was kind of the impression that we both got from Jeffrey Bassa and all that. So very impressive guy today. Another player that really impressed us, there was a little bit of a surprise, was Jack Kaiser from Notre Dame.
Yeah, Kaiser, smaller, older prospect. I think he's 25. Yep.
6 years at Notre Dame.
Yep, coming off of a national championship game. He was practicing 8 days after the national championship game here in the Senior Bowl. And I think the two areas that he stood out in, and I want to specify the difference between him and Bassa. What impressed me about Bassa was his ability to figure out what was going on behind him.
Yeah.
With Kaiser, he was able to very well play everything that was in front of him.
Yes.
Specifically in the running back linebacker one-on-one drills, where basically the running back's going to run right at the linebacker, and then he's going to split right or he's going to split left, and the linebacker has no clue which way he's going to go. He's got a two-way go on it. The linebacker has to react and then stay attached and try and prevent a catch. And no linebacker played that as well as Kaiser.
Rep after rep after rep.
Consistently was able to take the fight to the running back and actually engage him before the break, get his hands on him without holding, and then feel which way the running back was going to run so he could break with him.
Yeah.
It was very impressive. And then everything that was happening in terms of the run game in front of him, he was gap sound, finding the ball, very instinctual, just really a linebacker's linebacker.
Yeah, for sure. And really 6 years, only I believe a 2-year starter, so he was in the program for a while, had to wait his turn a little bit. But you can just tell this guy was a sponge. He absorbed everything. And the instincts, the football IQ are there. And pass coverage and sniffing out where the ball was in the running game and hitting the right gap in front of him. Very impressed with him. He's not that crazy athlete that you like and want to stand on the table for.
And he's light. He's 227 pounds.
But he's effective and he gets the job done. And we'll see how he does tomorrow, right? This could have been just a really good day. The great thing about the Senior Bowl is there are certain guys, like I was a huge fan on tape. I shouldn't say a huge fan, but I was really intrigued by Princely Yamanamalian from Ole Miss. And I've talked about him before, and I wanted to see him today. I didn't like his body language. I didn't like the competitiveness. He was not Alejo. He was not Mike Green. He was not Izaraku. He was not those guys that were Energizer bunnies out there today. And so seeing that and comparing and contrasting them with other edges, was not a big Jared Ivey fan today. The Ole Miss guys, I don't think showed up, the edge guys. And so this is a great spot to see and compare and contrast guys. And a guy that we were kind of talking about is maybe an interesting fit for the Buccaneers. Turns out not really. Demetrius Knight from South Carolina looked exactly like KJ Britt very stiff, lost in coverage, guessed wrong, could not stay with backs, gave up way too much cushion.
Bent in his waist a lot.
Yes, and the thing is, this is a guy that is number 30 on PFF's board, and I think that was way too high. You're going to see his stock fall after Mobile, because you have to be able to cover in this day and age to play linebacker. That was exposed here in Tampa Bay for sure last year, especially with the loss of Sebastian Dennis. So to me, this was a player that really did not pass the test today at all. And they did a lot of one-on-one coverage stuff with backs. They did a lot of quick underneath passing game plays, and he was a player who I think could take quite a tumble. He's going to need a really good game on Saturday. He's going to need a better practice day tomorrow to really recover. But you just look at the traits and the athleticism, the lack thereof. You're like, I don't know. I don't think this guy is certainly a fit in Tampa, and I'm not sure that he's going to have his stock do anything but fall here. So we'll see. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say the tape coming in, and I still think that should have a lot of weight in an evaluation. I thought he was going to be a much better athlete than he showed out to be today. Now, like you said, there's 2 more days of practices plus the actual Senior Bowl.
Yep.
And then he'll have another opportunity to show off his athleticism, at least in a much more controlled environment at the Combine. But it was definitely not the best first day for him.
Right.
He was somebody I actually wrote about. I think we put the article out earlier this morning as somebody I was excited to see.
Yeah.
Very disappointed once I saw him.
Yep.
And as a matter of fact, there was one other linebacker who somebody who wasn't really on our radar, at least from a fundamental standpoint, really impressed us. I think there's really good coaching at the program he's at, and that is Utah linebacker Brier Greaves. Yeah, just very technically sound in everything that he did today, and I think that played up maybe some athletic drawbacks, if you will, or shortcomings. But really impressed with just how he played the linebacker position. And with the exception of Knight, I came away more impressed with this linebacking group than I went into day one of the Senior Bowl.
Yeah, exactly. We're always impressed with our Pewter Platinum members. We just got to give you all a shout out today. Scott Federico, Rathel Gordon, Noah Parr, Scotty J, Dave Anderson, Eric McMillan, Zach Jarvis, Schizo813, Ash Fishpool, Joel L. Regan, Sam, and a couple new ones, John Dale Morris and Zach Brannigan. Thank you so much for supporting our efforts here at Pewter Report by becoming Pewter Platinum members. And you'll be, of course, you and the Pewter Premier members will be eligible to watch our Pewter Insider Show on Friday. That's the latest on the Bucs offensive coach or offensive coordinator search, and we'll have the latest news on a defensive tackle search that's also going on as well. Make sure that you watch Sunday's show, the Bucs Live Mock Draft with Josh Capo and Adam Slavon. It's going to be an all Senior Bowl affair. And that'll be cool too, because you can also get their insights from the game on Saturday. The Senior Bowl will take place on Saturday. So join Josh and Adam on Sunday to wrap up the Senior Bowl, get their insights from the game. They're also going to do a live Bucs mock draft on the show as well. And if you missed it, make sure that you check out the Bucs mock draft show, our first one, and that's presented by Walk-Ons. And Josh and I break down our first mock draft, which came out last week. We'll have another one coming out the first week of February after the Senior Bowl. We'll shake things up a little bit. We'll add in some of the players that really kind of caught our eye here and try to get some scoop from our Bucs sources about some of the guys that they like. But this is all on our Pewter Report TV YouTube channel. So make sure that you check that out. Hit the subscribe button. Join the over 17,200 subscribers we have now. Y'all have been absolutely great with your support of our channel. We greatly appreciate that. Make sure, too, that you are also becoming a member, Pewter Report TV channel member. We greatly appreciate all the support. It helps pay for things like this, our Mobile trips. We can bring on-site coverage to you. We'll also be in Mobile, Alabama in less than a month, or I should say Indianapolis, Indiana, for the NFL Scouting Combine. So a couple of off-season trips we always make to get the latest scoop, and that's why Pewter Report's draft coverage is the best. We're boots on the ground here as well as the Combine. We have a couple of super chats to get to before we leave the show tonight, and we greatly appreciate the support here from Jay Foster. I believe Jihad Campbell can convert to edge and become a player similar to the Parsons and Carter, meaning Abdul Carter from Penn State, who's in the draft this year, and of course Michael Parsons, the Pro Bowl Cowboys edge rusher. He's displayed elite bend and get off on edge reps. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I actually.
He's not here, by the way.
He's not here at Senior Bowl, but I have had a chance to scout him. And Jay Foster, I couldn't agree more. There are some other linebackers. Abdul Carter, I think, was one who did actually make the full switch to edge this year. And then Jalen Walker, there's a lot. He played linebacker for Georgia.
Yeah.
A lot of people think that maybe he is better suited as an edge. That's how I feel about Jihad Campbell. Now, I am in the minority on that. I think a lot of people really like Campbell as a linebacker, and I think he's linebacker one on a lot of people's lists. I personally just don't see it. I think he's much more stiff as a mover than most people think.
Yeah.
But I think as an edge, I actually really like his ability to win on the edge, win as a pass rusher. That's how I would see him. I just think at 19, for that kind of switch, it's a little rich for me. I'm going to be lower on him than most people are. Just
right. He hasn't played there, right? So like that's a real big projection to make because his position in college was as a linebacker, playing at that linebacker level with some occasional edge rushes, some occasional blitzes, etc. But yeah, that's quite a projection to make, and to pick him at 19 over guys that have kind of been there and done that,
especially in this edge class, which is deeper than most, in my opinion.
I agree. Speaking of that, we have a comment here from Grace Points, one of our Pewter Report TV channel members. Thank you so much, Grace Point. Antoine Powell-Ryland, an edge from Virginia Tech, 6'2 and a quarter, 253. This is a good later round prospect that I like. Any thoughts? Yeah, we've actually talked about him prior to the Senior Bowl here, and we kind of said, ideally, it's like Mike Green is like an ideal first round pick for the Buccaneers. Donovan Ezeraku's making some progress. We'll see how he continues to perform against the tackles here and how he does in the game on Saturday. But like he might be a second round guy, right? Because he'd be there, when the Buccaneers pick in the second round. Maybe not. He might be an upper second round guy. But if you're looking for Buccaneers edge rushers that have some get off, that cause some havoc, that get in the backfield and disrupt things, whether it's pressures, hits, sacks, tackles for loss. These are three guys. Mike Green in round one, Donovan Ezeraku in round two, and then Antoine Powell-Ryland would be an ideal day three guy. I mean, maybe he sneaks into the third round, but is this a deeper edge class? We'll see. But fourth round kind of seems like an ideal spot for him. We'll see how well he tests. He might be the least athletic out of these three. But what I liked about him was the numbers that he produced. 16 sacks, 3 forced fumbles, a boatload of tackles for loss. That's right in line with Donovan Ezeraku, who had 16 and a half sacks, three forced fumbles as well. And then you look at Mike Green, 17 sacks and 3 forced fumbles. So these guys all have the same number of sacks. Now that's a very, very linear type of way to measure these guys, but they all did reach the backfield quite a bit, and not just with the ability to sack the quarterback, but also for the tackles for loss too. Their games are similar.
All have wicked spin moves.
They really do, yeah. I mean, and they're hard workers. They're hustle guys as well. They do get some hustle sacks by chasing the play down. So yeah, we're fans too. We'll just see how it all shakes out with Antoine Powell-Ryland. But APR is a good player. So is Donovan Ezeraku and Mike Green. Those two guys are here. APR is not.
He was at the Shrine Bowl.
Shrine Bowl, yeah, exactly. Which will be tomorrow night or Thursday night.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thursday night.
Comment here from Paul Bowen, who is an Alabama resident, I believe. Get some king cake while y'all are at the home of Mardi Gras. Now, some people might say, wait a minute, Mardi Gras. They're not in New Orleans. They're not in Louisiana. Folks, this was the birthplace of Mardi Gras right here in Mobile, Alabama. They still have a Mardi Gras parade. As a matter of fact, New Orleans stole it from Mobile, as Paul says. The point is, Mobile is the home of Mardi Gras and beat New Orleans by like 80 years. I'm not sure about the years, but I'll trust you, Paul. You know your history better than I do. But certainly, yes, it is one of those situations where you think of Mardi Gras, and New Orleans has kind of done it bigger and better. It started right here with the king cakes here in Mobile, Alabama. Speaking of kings, if you're looking for the kings of insurance, folks, you know who I'm going to be talking about. It's our folks over at Brier Greaves Insurance. Now, we've talked about the homeowners policy and the hurricanes and the floods, but I've also got my auto insurance policy through Brier Greaves. And unlike other agents, Brier Greaves Insurance, they've had access to 90% of the auto carriers in Florida. So having an agent like Brier Greaves will ensure that you're getting the most competitive premium possible. And we're wondering if you're getting the best deal because you know what everybody has to offer. If you go through Brier Greaves, they can pull auto quotes for you and save you all the time and legwork to do that, and now including Geico. Geico has made Brier Greaves one of their exclusive agents. Only a handful of agents in Florida can make that claim. So whether it's Geico or whether it's with Travelers, which is my particular insurance that I get through Brier Greaves, you're going to find the absolute lowest rates possible for your family with the specific conditions that your family has, right? In terms of whether they're younger drivers or older drivers, accidents, clean record, whatever. The folks at Brier Greaves Insurance can help you find the right insurance carrier for your auto policy. Geico has a great appetite for younger drivers, high school, college age kids. And those are some of the most expensive burdens for parents, auto insurance costs. Brier Greaves Auto Insurance has been able to save families thousands on their insurance costs. They can help you too. Geico not only offers some of the most competitive rates, but they also offer coverage that no one else offers, such as mechanical breakdown, which will cover your vehicle like an extended warranty, but without the hassle. So give the Brier Greaves Insurance Agency a call to get your quote today. Brier Greaves can also provide full coverage on your antique car or vehicle, your RV, your motorhome, and more. Give them a call. Get that free comprehensive market summary of your auto insurance options. That's BrierGreavesInsurance.com. B-R-I-E-R, Brier Greaves, G-R-I-E-V-E-S, or call their office at 813-876-4166 and tell them the Pewter Report sent you. Well, Josh, we have had a fun, action-packed day today and a fun, action-packed podcast today as well. And we're going to be back tomorrow as we break it all down again from our second day in Mobile, Alabama, covering some pretty interesting conditions out here. Usually Mobile is like cloudy and rainy and all of that, and today was actually sunny and nice.
The second year in a row, I've got a sunburn on the podcast.
Exactly. So tomorrow, Bucs defensive targets shine, and we'll continue to look at that. We'll take a look at those wide receivers that Mike Beal and company might be looking at as well. We're going to have the latest when it comes to the offensive coordinator search, so make sure you stay tuned to PewterReport.com. We told you earlier that we broke the news that Josh Grizzard, the Bucs passing coordinator, will be among the interviewees for the offensive coordinator position. And then that's going to do it for this week's Pewter Report podcast. On Friday, the Pewter Insider will happen as Matt Matera and I at 1:30 will be breaking down the latest on the Bucs offensive coordinator search. And I think that is, do we have another super chat? Let's see. Oh, yeah, here we go. We do have a super chat. Thank you so much, Josh.
Yeah, I try to help out.
Yeah. Let's tackle this one here. Let me pull it up. It is a $1.99 super chat, and it is from Josh S.
See, I try and look out for the Josh.
I know you do so well. $1.99. What if they went with a surprise like Malachi Starks out of Georgia, the safety in round one?
I don't think it's off the board. I think that he is a strong enough talent from what I've seen and heard. I haven't dove deep on him myself yet, but from all accounts, he's a good enough prospect that if he was there at 19, the Bucs may see him as so much better than everyone else available that while they're maybe more positionally needy at other areas, that they'd be willing to take starts. And then some of those areas where they are positionally needy, such as edge, wide receiver, a little bit further down the line.
They're deeper.
The draft is a bit deeper there. So it is possible. I don't think that that's out of the realm of possibility. I don't think Starks is going to be there from everything I've heard so far, but we are very early in the draft process. But it's certainly a viable option, and the Bucs could use a safety next to Antoine Winfield Jr. I think you put those two together, and it potentially could be the best safety duo in the NFL if Starks lives up to his billing.
Lots of questions about Jordan Whitehead, the neck injury from the car accident. Just didn't play well in his return to Tampa either.
No guaranteed money left on his contract. Well, there was no guaranteed, no guaranteed money left.
Yeah. And let's not forget, Antoine Winfield Jr., second round pick. The Buccaneers would have at the top of the second round, once they traded back in 2022, taken Lewis Cine from Minnesota, or I should say Minnesota actually traded up to beat them to the punch out of Georgia as well. Yeah, so that's another Georgia Bulldog safety that they like. He didn't really pan out though, so maybe sometimes you dodge a bullet in that instance. They went with Logan Hall instead. It took him a little bit of a while to have a light bulb come on, but appears to be on right now. But we'll see, right? We'll see if Todd Bowles goes with another Georgia defensive back. Tyke Smith seems like a hit.
Yeah, he's been doing pretty good.
Yeah, not too bad. Well, we appreciate everybody tuning in. Make sure that you follow all of the action on pewterreport.com. We have tons of stories about the offensive coordinator search. We have our Pewter Report roundtable today up, as well as the latest from Mobile, Alabama, as the Buccaneers try to find the next Tyke Smith and Yaya Diaby and Cody Mauch and everybody that they've drafted that has become a core member of their team from the Senior Bowl here in Mobile, Alabama. Make sure you follow us on social media on X, Facebook, and Instagram at Pewter Report. And, of course, Pewter Report TV, our YouTube channel, for Josh Capo and Matt Matera and Bailey Adams and Adam Slavon and our intern, Isaiah Delgado. I'm Scott Reynolds, and we'll see you tomorrow night at 7 o'clock Eastern for the next episode of Pewter